Hey, I just want to welcome everybody to the Community Now Magazine Mental Health Week. I'm kicking it off with Mo Aladin here, the Monday morning interview. For anybody that is going to be watching this, it is going to be an outstanding week, so tune in. So many great people, so many great interviews. Knowledge will be shared, and it's all about asking for help, and we're stronger together. So I really want to make sure that everybody gets out there and talks. And today's interview is going to be with Mo Aladin, and Mo is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and just a social do-gooder. He's always out there. He's helping. He owns the Montanas in Alberta here. He has his own HR. He has his own IT. He's obviously one of the first people I asked when it came to peer guidance, because our history goes back, 16, 18 years, and the amount that he's helped me is priceless. So, Mo, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here today with you, as always. We see each other a lot.
We do. We go way back, even before my entrepreneurial days, when you would buy equipment from me when I was a sales rep and help me out that way and help put food on my table. When I was a rookie squash player, you gave me all the tips. And
now you can kick my butt in singles, which I will go on the court with.
Now you've dragged me to the double side of the world, the evil empire.
I might have to quit because you're going to get better on that too.
I doubt that. Well, but when we're talking about mental wellness and mental health, especially sports and squash is such a big part of it for me, and being out there and exercising, and I know you too.
Yeah, absolutely. You and I have chatted about just the gym being open in the last few months. That's just mental. Get your health again, get your fitness again, just to make sure that your mind is fresh. Yeah, getting out of the house, getting out of that solitary confinement that we're all in, to get out and also do some exercise. And again, we interact in the club with social distancing and all that to see other people, which is that connectivity that you really need with mental illness and mental health.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I know my interview with Steve tomorrow really talks about listening, but you're really like in the front line here with the restaurant side of things, and your employees, in general, you work with a lot of millennials. So let's talk about millennials a little bit, and how do they feel about the virus?
So it's really interesting. I did some work with talking to my millennials, and they are exactly where we are. They're concerned about shutdowns. They're concerned about the economy not working. They're concerned about how they get good food on the table, what's happening to their livelihood. This is all the things that the same thing. What I thought as people's first perception is that they're like, you know what, I don't care. If it's shut down, the government's going to pay me. That is absolutely not the truth from what I've been talking to all of them. They are talking to me all the time. They're absolutely concerned about them getting back to their livelihood. When we opened up our restaurants, with only a takeout and delivery, we had no concerns about getting people back because they wanted to come back for several reasons, which we'll talk about, but they wanted to come back because they're in the same mode as we are. Does that make sense to when you're here?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it goes to the entire buddy. I'm only 7 years removed from a millennial.
I know.
It's not that far. And the millennials that I talk to, and even going into the Gen Z, they have the same concerns that we do in life. They want a house. They want to have financial success. They want to have a family.
Right.
And that hasn't changed because of COVID. I think it's just in general that's our society. But you did mention that there is this fallacy out there that I'm just going to stay at home and I'm collecting my $2,000 a month and serve, I don't want to work, this is my vacation. I don't see that. I've heard but what's your
absolutely. Is there some that would probably stay at home? Absolutely, but there are few and far between. And the other thing is, what the difference between us and millennials is that they are really close to the sun. They have no savings in their bank accounts. They're living paycheck to paycheck as they go through their career into a transitional job, like a restaurant job. So they are they're worried about how my rent is going to be paid, how I'm going to get babysitting, the basic things that we, as we've gotten older, we have some savings left. Some of us have savings, some of us have equity in our house. They have none of that stuff. So there is no opportunity for them so if they miss a rent, they're out the door. So that's how close it is to sun. So this disparity between us, Xers and other folks and boomers and all that stuff who have all this, and they're worried about, what's happening to my savings? What's happening to my portfolio? Well, they have none of those worries, but they have worries about basic things. How do I put food on the table? Because they are worried about it, right? So them sitting on say, that they're going to collect something. So this may be the first time they've had some more. They've actually had to get some cash that they go, okay, there's some sustainable numbers, right? So yes, there's been some of that where people go, wow, this is great that the government is supportive. So that's why I just say that they're in the same boat, a little different in the sense of what their financial concerns are and financial needs are, but their worry, as we talked about already, is exactly the same as the shutdown. The virus going away? Is the vaccine going to work? When do we get the vaccine? And as you just said, my people are in the front line, right? They're dealing with customers every day. Majority of them, the full-timers and managers, they all work every day of the week. Every week, I should say, not every day, but every week. So they've been working all the time, right? So they haven't had this break stop. And then they're dealing with people coming with concerns of COVID. Getting abused on the front line because there's people out there who don't believe in wearing masks and doing all this stuff. So they're being abused as 18, 17, 16, 15-year-olds getting abused. My restaurants as much, but some of the ones that you hear about on paper where people are coming in and abusing them and saying, I don't wear a mask, this is a hoax and all that stuff. That's some of the challenges that they're facing.
And those challenges are sad in my opinion. I mean, it's awful, We have both of us have our masks. I mean, we're close to 6 feet apart, and we do what we can. But being on the front line, I mean, that's got to take a toll. And you and I can shove it off, or maybe even go as far as punching somebody. Well, we haven't gone there. We don't condone that. But it's got to be hard for a 17, 18, 19-year-old person who's just going to university, stress of going to university online. They can't do that in person. Life has changed, and then you have some people squawking at them over a mask or over something at a restaurant. That's got to be tough one.
Yeah, very tough. And yes, we have our managers to get them off the wall because they're climbing the wall because they're upset, they're crying. They're absolutely, we have a communication tool that we use, and everybody talks on the communication. And you should see yourself the pain that these kids are talking about. This customer came in and did this, and you can see that there's some potential issues coming with mental illness. And what am I going to do about this? How do I deal with it? Our managers and I'm available for them to talk to them about how do we, hey, listen, it's not your fault. It's not separated from internalizing that's your fault. It's not you. Whether it's a system, whether it's a government, whether they have a bad day, whether they're unemployed, all those issues are there, which is not yours, right? It's not your own and all that stuff. So that's the kind of piece of it.
Yeah, and that's sad to hear. It's just so sad to hear that stuff like that is happening. And I'm glad, obviously, you guys, and I know with your HR background and would have something in place, which is great, but I'm sure there's a lot of independent restaurants out there that don't, or it's a mom and pop shop and someone's coming in and being abusive to them, and they don't have anybody to turn to, and they've got the stress of paying the bills, putting food on the table, paying the mortgage, whatever it may be, and where do they go? And which is why I'm loving why Krista was thinking about canceling this, and we talked about it. We're like, you know what? No, it's needed more than ever,
right?
And let's just make it for free. And we love giving the money away to the doorway, but this year is just one of those things that I think that the 15 or 16 people that are out here, like yourself and myself and Connie and all the other ones, are always here to help and talk. And if we can help 1 or 2 or 20 people come out and say, yeah, there are people there for you. There are places that you can go to talk. It's just going to be, I think, a landslide of mental illness coming out of COVID.
And how, yes, the support. One of the good things that come out of it is that you get support when you're in a restaurant. There's other people. So instead of isolating in a house where you go off and deal with it by myself, here they get to interact with others, have a few laughs, and say, and then share some of those stories so that they are, not bouncing off other people and saying, here's what's happening to me. And yes, there is some laughter in that, because you say, oh my God, did you see how silly that person was acting, and how this was, and that's the type of thing we're conscious of all the time. And the other thing we've got to be conscious of is the customer side of it, and they're having issues with themselves, right? And so whether this is an outing that they finally get to go out and have a meal with their family in a restaurant, and they don't want they don't want all the things that. So example, you and I going to a restaurant with our families, and we're taking every precaution that needs to be taken with our mask and social distancing. Well, they'll look across and they'll see somebody who's doing the opposite, behaving the opposite. And that's part of their anxiety, and that's creating that whole, I'm not going to go to restaurants anymore. Because other people don't behave the way I'm supposed to behave. Right? So that's part of that whole thing. So what we tell our teams and say, listen, everybody's on a different space. All you have to be is gentle. You're not the policeman. You're not too gentle with their needs are, right? So if they bring you up concerns about, why is that, folks, and you just gently say, hey, listen, I'll deal with it. Thank you very much for bringing it up. And then just go quietly deal with those guests and those people who are maybe just, and again, maybe this is the first time out, they forgot about continuing to wear a mask because they go to the washroom, they're supposed to wear a mask. I mean, I've been in a restaurant where my wife will just literally yell at me, goes, where's your mask? Where's your mask? Where's your mask? It's like, oh yeah, sorry. Because you stop thinking about it. I just got to go to the washroom. But you're right, I have to wear a mask to do that. So maybe it's just that they slipped their mind and they decided, okay, I forgot to wear a mask to go to the washroom. Right? So that's the kind of things that they're constantly dealing with, right? But, I always laugh about some of that stuff that they tell me that's happening. And when they go to, I do have an incident that we'll talk about in a bit about a customer coming in here and dealing with some issues. And it's just the stories come out of how wonderfully people have behaved, whether it's on the customer side or even on our staff side. It's both.
Well, let's share that story.
Okay, so it's a wonderful story. It just happened. I don't even know what days these are. Is it today Tuesday? It's Tuesday. Okay.
No, it's Monday. It's Monday. We're doing this live.
Yes, live. Monday. So last week we had a caregiver and her person that she gives care to was in our restaurant. The caregiver was doing all she could to keep the other one calm. And there's some other underlying issues. This is a regular customer. Comes in every week with the caregiver. They have the same meal. She gets the same food. They enjoy the experience. There's never been an issue. But part of this whole awareness stuff is having there's some constraints. So the young lady who's with the mental illness, started having a fit. And she really was out of control. Caregiver is doing all she can do to alleviate this issue, and the young lady's not responding. She's being violent to the caregiver, not to our staff. Our staff came in and said, hey, how's it, or how can we help? The lady says, first of all, don't call the police. Let me deal with it. So we said, oh, no, we won't call the police if that's what you want. Because I will talk her out of it. Just give me some space so we got some other customers out of the way so that they could deal with the issue and try to calm her down. And so this went on for almost an hour in that restaurant. Right? Very few people in the restaurant at that time, so there wasn't that many other interactions. So about an hour later, finally she was at a state where she was somewhat calm to get her out of the thing. So we got her out of she was finished. The caregiver took her out of the restaurant, and so that that obviously upset my staff because they couldn't do anything with it. They had no way to help anybody because the young lady was biting the caregiver and scratching the caregiver and all this stuff. So they're trying to help through this whole process and being social distant. So they kept their distance and did this. The part of the story that's really heartwarming is that I got a call right after it. Because anything that happens in a restaurant, I want to make sure that it doesn't go to the media that perceives us to do all the wrong things. Where another guest says, "Why didn't they just call 911 and do this?" So my lovely general manager calls me and says, "Listen, this has happened in the restaurant. I just want you to be aware of it." And I just got a call from the child's father, and he's going to be here in less than half an hour. Right? So what should I do? I said, "What do you mean? What should you do?" He said, I think he might be upset at us. Like, I don't know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, let's get the facts before we get jump to the conclusion that the father's here to yell at us. That we should have called 911 or we should have called the police or whatever it is. Let's call 911." And so the guy comes in. Comes up. Well, here's the heartwarming part. The father came in and he was just so appreciative of our staff saying, "Well, first of all, thank you for following all the rules. I know this was an inconvenience to your restaurant. My daughter, who has mental issues, had a fit, but thank you for doing this, and I cannot thank you enough. Is there anything I can do for you folks? I am because I just thought, we have this idea of not treating people with respect and dignity and all that. The father came in. It was just quite a heartwarming story about the father coming back and telling us the restaurant where you guys did an amazing job. Not because if you can imagine, and again, you and I are not both psychologists, maybe the 911 situation would have made it escalated even worse.
Yeah.
Then you're creating issues when there's really things that happen. So that's the kind of stuff where we have to be at this day and time and age. We have to be so sensitive about all the mental issues and all the things people are dealing with all the time. Right?
No, I mean, that's a great story. And I think it goes to show you that the training that you guys put in place and the openness and how you're always there to help is and your staff and support your staff is hopefully the same that a lot of other people will do it. And I mean, you've been in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I was in it for a short while, and I mean, you do understand that there are a lot of different things that the whether it be the general manager or the waitress or even the host that deals.
Yeah.
Is there, like, what type of other stresses do they come across in the workplace?
So, really good question. So let's talk about that whole managerial stress. Is they're hearing the same news you and I are.
Yeah.
Restaurants closing, businesses closing. So I probably had a conversation with the majority of my general managers about, are we going to close? Because I don't see business coming in. If there's no business, I don't have a job, right? And so that's one of the biggest stress that I had to deal with right away, is to say, hey, listen, with the support of the government, with the support of what we're doing, we're going to ride this through as a whole team. The one thing I can promise you is that I will communicate with you guys if it's coming down the road that we're going to close the restaurant. The other thing I can communicate is also, if we're going to close the restaurant, I will give you options so that we'll take care of the majority of our people because we have enough restaurants that we can spread some of those folks out there. That was one of the first concerns that they also, because they say, well, geez, Tony Roma's is gone, this is gone, this restaurant down the street just gone. What's going to happen with us? What's going to happen with us? So that's one of the biggest stresses. So once they got that sense of, listen, here's how we manage that whole stress with obviously our costs and all that stuff. So here's how we're managing all that stress. So that's the first stress that they dealt with in terms of managing. The second stress that they deal with is, what is another lockdown? Because we're all concerned about another full-on lockdown.
Yeah.
Because if it happens, it happens. All we can do is we get dealt with the cards and deal with the cards we get dealt. We said, well, let's cross that bridge when we get there. We're all in this together. There's no us or them. So what I said is, I will continue to communicate. So here's one of the good things that happened is that all my restaurants are spread across Alberta. They're all on top of this communication now from the media and from the news. So if they hear something within their community that it's happening, for example, a mandate to wear masks and all that stuff, they'll send me that kind of information. So they're now on top of it and say, hey, Mo, this is what's happening. This is the ordinance that has gone through. This is the bylaw that's happened. This is the visitation. So they're aware of it. So last week we had last week we had several Alberta health officers ticketing people in other restaurants because of lack of social distancing, a bunch of other factors that they were serving alcohol past 10 o'clock, that type of things. So they all found out this kind of information, then they all share it, which is now what we've done is created this group where we all share everybody's information, whether it's down the street is this is what's happened, this is an awareness, this is how serious it's become. So instead of me being the pusher of communication, majority of the time now I'm pulling that information going, okay, look at this. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everybody else for finding out this information on what's happening around in the community and all that. And then the way that the restaurants have all gone together is especially when there's restaurants close by to each other, they will also share information. So they go walk to call them up and say, hey, what do you see? Is your restaurant as dead as mine? Yeah, it is. What's going on? Okay. Then there's a shared collective feel to the whole thing rather than just saying, so that, we're a number of restaurants, but now we've added a whole bunch of other people that also want to feel from our pain, and we share that kind of feedback.
No, absolutely. I think obviously communication is the key to everything, never mind, especially when it comes to mental wellness, to talk, to open up, to be there. And I mean, as we mentioned before, you and I have known each other for a long time, and your personality, and I know that your staff is going to be there. It's going to be looked after. Yeah. So I mean, but the one thing that I would like, what do you do if, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but if a staff says, listen, I'm at the brink. I can't handle this anymore. I'm stressed out. Like I don't know what to do in my life. What are some things that you do here at whether it be Montana's, or do you advise them from help them through the personal side of things that we can share with some of the people out there?
Yeah, I think these are cases that's coming up almost every other day, right? So basically, it's a network of people. It's here's there's obviously Calgary helpline that you can get some information. If there's a financial constraint, then we'll have a conversation with all of them and say, listen, here's what this is what's going to take to bridge you, because we've had some concerns where the landlord has said, I need that month's rent right away. We don't know anything about it, and we've brought them in advance or whatever that money to do that. The other part is the whole chip in by my staff, and it's nothing to do with me. They've come in and done so much stuff. They've done food drops to these restaurants because now they have to quarantine, and they go, we need the money, but I have to quarantine. So the restaurants have done food drops within themselves to go drop food up at their house and say, hey, let's not you worry about your kids and food and all that stuff. So we'll bring food out to the folks. And the other thing that they have done is when their kids have to be taken to school, some people in their own staff will take the kids to their school, right? They said, hey, listen, why don't you? I'll take your kid. You stay where you're supposed to be. So that way we're not disturbing you and all that stuff. So every level, it's been part of that whole collective force where it's financial. There's some support from all of us. Where there's mental, we're not psychologists, but we say, hey, go to Calgary Helpline, go do this stuff. The risk that we have is, we always talk about is, what if it's the dire need stuff, where they're talking about some really sad stuff, right? That way, one of our managers said that she was calling that person every other hour. Say, hey, you're going to be fine, right? Just this whole talking over and over and over. And more you talk to them, and statistically, as I understand that, it's 6 times before somebody will actually open up about suicide and all these other things. So I just shared that kind of information. So if you keep talking to them, right, then they will break at the end and say, yeah, you know what, I was thinking about it, but thank you for calling. Thank you for just, and telling the funny stories with what's happening within the restaurants. And some of my GMs have been doing that religiously, and they go to each and say, hey, why don't you just call and see how she's doing and how he's doing, all that stuff, right? Majority of my workforce, including the GMs and managers, are women, and women are just a little bit more in terms of communication. Men becomes a challenge in terms of what, because they're much more closed off and they think they can deal with it themselves. So we keep that information out there that says, hey, if you're a man manager, it's going to be harder nut to crack than it is a woman manager. So let's deal with it that way. And then the other things that we've helped out, so whether it's, I got to stay home because my kid's now off to school. So the school's a really good example. They just work their schedules around and say, you know what, I'll go in, you pick up my shift or my whole day another time down the road, and I've given them the flexibility to do that. Yeah. You know what, let's work out as a team that whoever needs to be home with their child because their child has now been told to go home, then stay at home, deal with it, and then come back when you're ready to come back. And then we've just worked out. So whether it's schedule type things, we've taken that kind of pain away where, just say, hey, let's just get a supervisor in, let's get a manager in, that's different, and then deal with that. And everybody's been wonderful in terms of like, never worried, once have I worried about, will they make up that hour, right? It's one of those worries that he has to deal with. Will they make up those hours? Are they milking the system? I've never even thought about it, never even worried about it, because I know that they make up their hours, and I know that they'll probably go way beyond because we've been supporting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great. I mean, I think that leadership starts at the top down, and that's the type of person you are, the culture you create, and I mean, even rolling into what our kind of theme is that it's you're not alone, right? And we've talked about that, saying you're not alone. So we're stronger together. Some of the hashtags that we're using, and that's important for you people to realize that you do have somebody to reach out to, and that's the importance of having this week and the people that are going to be talking over the next 5 days. And I'd also like to bring up that Friday at 2 p.m. we're having a nice Zoom call. The link will be out there. You can find it on communitynowmagazine.com or their Facebook page. Click on it. Come join us for a Zoom call. All of us are going to be there, Mo and everybody else, and it's just going to be a nice big talk, and you can connect and start to get to know people. And it's a really casual way to start reaching out and asking for that help, because we know it's very, very hard. That first step is the hardest part of asking for help. So thank you, Mo, for sharing your stories today and talking about how it affects the restaurant industry, and especially in that millennial category of the people that are at the front line dealing with different situations on a daily basis.